there's some major media news, which we've been wanting to cover now for quite some time. I have some mixed feelings about this. Well, let's get into it. Let's put it up there on the screen. Vice Media, which was once valued at $5.7 billion after filing for bankruptcy previously, is now shutting down Vice.com and laying off hundreds of staffers. This is really extraordinary. So Vice, as we'll all remember, filed for bankruptcy last year. It was then bought by a consortium led by basically like one of those private investment groups. They're selling the company off piecemeal. They've come to a decision where they've decided we're just not going to publish on this website at all anymore. I don't really know what plans they have that remain for the brand.
Yeah.
And hundreds of the people who work there, axed. They're gone, on top of the hundreds of people that were already laid off previously. And I guess the only reason why I can say I have mixed feelings is I'm not quite sure that we would be, at least I don't think I would be here without Vice. Vice was one of the major inspirations that I had for getting into this business. Watching the Vice Guide to Travel, Shane Smith was a huge inspiration to me back in the early 2010s. All of them, all of the original founders, kind of their image and the gonzo ability. But more importantly, it was a story of legitimately rivaling the mainstream. And the millennial aspect was played up a bit too much, but the thing that they did get right was that the staid and the like boring aspect and the propagandistic ways that original media worked was not something that the new generation wanted. And I think early days of Vice genuinely spoke to that, and that spoke to a lot of their success. But look, you know, at the same way, Shane has also been a very cautionary tale. One that I think about for our business all the time is I'm like, this guy, I mean, he was raising billions and billions of dollars. It turned into a Ponzi scheme where he's like taking money out, inflating the value. At one point, he admitted to somebody that there was no grand plan. It was to try and sell to the latest idiot who was buying their marketing plan.
Wow.
And, you know, now he's living in luxury in
Wow.
Los Angeles last time I checked.
Yeah,
and
well,
all these people are screwed.
That was what a lot of people pointed out, is that executives were still getting big fat bonuses last year, as recently as last year, even as, you know, their business model was completely crumbling. It's wild for me to think about. First of all, it's sad for the people who work there. And, you know, this is part of a broader trend of massive media layoffs that we've been seeing. LA Times, BuzzFeed, you know, the collapse of the Messenger, that's a whole other story. But there's clearly, you know, a failure of some of the business models that supported especially these digital-focused companies for a long time. I agree with you. The early days of Vice, you know, I was at MSNBC when Vice was really hot.
Right.
And they were terrified.
They should
be. Terrified of Vice. Because they could go out, they could send someone on a freaking ISIS ride-along.
And it was good,
which was wild.
Yeah, it was good.
And any established media outlet, you know, you have to have... First of all, you just probably wouldn't do it.
Right.
But if you did, the expense involved, the caution involved, the number of fixers that you'd have to have, the amount of security you'd have to have, all of that would have to be in place for understandable good reasons, because you want to protect your people. And here comes Vice, just willing to go balls out and do all kinds of crazy stuff. And people were glued to it because it did have that like authentic, unvarnished, unpackaged, non-corporate feel. And so it really was a glimpse and a preview into, you know, some of the media brands, now the alternative media brands that are successful. You know, in terms of their business, I looked at their YouTube channel yesterday to see what kind of things they're doing. I mean,
what's up?
I
haven't looked in a long time.
It's very niche, but some of their stuff still pops off.
Yeah, actually,
you know, it still gets millions of views sometimes on YouTube. And so I was thinking, you know, Vice at this point, it probably makes sense as like an operation a little bit larger than what we do.
Yeah, you're right.
You know, to just put out like video content on these, you know, interesting or edgy or whatever topics that have a real audience that people still are interested in. But, and I think this is the case for a lot of these news organizations that have failed, but to have this like 900-person operation with this giant headquarters in Brooklyn or wherever and support all of that, that's just not going to work.
Nope.
It's just not going to work. The other company that was the, you know, big hot company at the time when Vice was coming up and that everybody was terrified of and trying to get in on their success was BuzzFeed.
Oh, man.
And it's the same deal.
Disaster.
I mean, completely hollowed out. You know, that business model is also completely collapsed. And so, you know, in a lot of ways, it really is the end of an era for Vice and BuzzFeed and these other outlets to be totally hollowed out. But there was a moment there when I don't know, there was a lot of dumb money flowing to these companies, many of which were much less credible than Vice or BuzzFeed. You think about like Mike.com and all these companies that sprung up then that were getting these
29
multiple $100 million valuations and whatever, and money was flowing out. What was the there was just a recent with the Recount was the video play that raised millions and millions of dollars, and it's like, I just want to know how that ever penciled out. How it ever penciled out that was going to work out from a business perspective. It just doesn't really make sense to me.
No, it doesn't. Well, and the reason why, look, it's funny whenever the rich people go bust, but it's not funny whenever you hire people and then they get screwed when you legitimately sell them a vision. And also, there are hundreds of people who are now out of work. Let's put this up there on the screen. Just in January 2024, 500 journalists were laid off from the LA Times, from Vice, from so many different places, GQ, Sports Illustrated. So a lot of this is ideological. A lot of it's just bad business. As you point out with BuzzFeed, I just looked up their stock, currently trading at 33 cents a share. Whenever it debuted at $10 a share. So what is that? You can do the math in terms of what the overall loss in their stock value is. I mean, it's basically a bargain company just waiting and being chucked off, piece by piece. It's kind of humiliating for not only a lot of the money that was put in, but just for the game that a lot of those people talked at the time. It's one of those, it's a good lesson in humility, but also just, you gotta run scared. You gotta be careful whenever you're running a company. And I don't think a lot of these people did. So it's sad what happened. One of my favorite Vice docs was the guy Jaimo, the one who lived in the Arctic Circle. It came out in like 2009. I remember watching it and be like, I've never seen anything like this. And I just watched, went on YouTube, debuted 11 years ago now at some point, has like 8.5 million views. I mean, that was the heyday. The Vice Guide to North Korea, with the cannibal thing from Liberia. I mean, these were incredible to watch. They changed the whole game. And then, boom, for a variety of reasons, most of them their own fault, it just all went away.
Yeah, I mean, that ad-supported model just doesn't
work.
It just doesn't work. It just doesn't pencil out. There just isn't the money there. And so you have to be able to switch to, reader-supported or viewer-supported, some sort of membership model. And to make that work, you have to be providing something that is really meaningful to people where they feel like they want to be invested into it. And even then, it will be difficult to support, 900 people. That's just an insane size and overhead to be able to support. I think there used to be, going back in the day, there used to be like a prestige ethos around media where it wasn't so much about like, this is a money-making venture.
Right.
It was more about like, this is a civic commitment. This is a, prestige for me, my family, my whatever, my business. And so the profit making was also not as central, but also the business models worked a bit better than they do now. So I think we're very much in a transitional phase right now, and it's not clear whether what comes out on the other end is better or worse, I'd say.
Big time.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.